You want to know about the beginning. Okay. I remember when I got saved, 15 years old. It was a radical moment in my life because I had just finished the night prior praying to God and asking God, Lord, if you can get me out of this problem, get me out of this environment that I am, I will really be thankful. I remember the night prior I had gotten into a big fight. It was the greatest fight I'd been in. My family was involved, friends, enemies. It was right in front of my house. And I remember that after that fight, I said, if I don't change my life around, I think that it won't end well. That next day, I got invited by my friend, Miami, to go to a restaurant to meet some individuals that they wanted to introduce to me. And I remember meeting Pastor, and I remember meeting Rajay Davis, who were gonna be key pillars in what's gonna be my growth as a believer. And when they introduced themselves, they said to me these words that I have never heard growing up. They said, we were at a restaurant, they said, get whatever you want. I've never heard that before growing up. I was we grew up in a stricken environment, and to hear that it was just different. And then I started talking to them. I started talking about Rajay Davis. I was really into, my baseball career at the time, and it was just powerful what they told me. They said, they were believers. They believed in God. They wanted to help me in my baseball career, and they were inviting me to go to church. And particularly, Rajay told me, he says, if you come to church, I will train you. It was really exciting to be able to hear that. So the next day after that, we went to church. It was a retreat that was happening at the time. And while the man of God was preaching, I was just convicted of sin. And I knew that if I did not give my heart to the Lord, I was going to go to hell. I knew it within me. So I still don't remember when I went to the altar. I got saved, gave my heart to the Lord. And at 15, I started this journey, which I had no idea was gonna be this exciting, this amazing, and this extraordinary. It was gonna be something that was gonna change really my life and change my family's life. And so at 15 years old, I decided that I was gonna leave the streets and I was gonna focus totally on doing the will of God. By 16 years old, I was already being trained by a man of God who was my spiritual father, who had a vision of me traveling the world as a worldwide evangelist. He said that he had seen me putting my feet on every continent of the world, but I must confess it wasn't easy. There was a lot of opposition from my family. Going to church, my mom, my dad, my brother thought that I had been brainwashed. I lost my mind. My aunts, my cousins would make fun of me. It was a difficult moment because I was the only Christian in my household. And, by 17 years old, I was already starting to get little preaching engagements. A lot of opposition in my home. My brother wouldn't talk to me for months. My father was discouraging. My mom was really trying to do everything that she could to get me out of church. And I remember at 17 years old, I was, now 2 years saved, I decided that I was going to do everything God wanted me to do. And that next year, when I turned 18, I decided to go on a 40-day fast. And the journey really started right there and then. Preaching started picking up, baseball started slowing down, and I knew that something was gonna happen. I started moving around the state of Connecticut, a couple churches with few members, 10 members here, 15 members here, 20 here. I remember I wouldn't even get offerings. I'll get chips, soda for the offering. And it was so powerful because a lot of people didn't understand. My family thought that I had lost my mind, and proving that, I will bring home chips and soda from the offering. They said, truly, indeed, this man lost his mind. How is he gonna survive? But I kept going and things just started growing. I remember traveling, the first place that I traveled to preach was Puerto Rico. I went to Puerto Rico. It was an amazing time at a very small event of just 15 people at the most. It was just so powerful. And God moved by his spirit. And then I went to Dominican Republic, and I just got on the street and I just started telling everybody about the love of Jesus. It was a very slow process, but it started growing. Young people start getting saved, lives start changing, and then one thing led to another. I remember the first time I met Berta, They invited me to do a small crusade in Moca. That led me to go to Miami. In Miami, I met Miriam, introduced me to New Jersey with the pastors Israel and Mayra Lugo. Mayra Lugo introduced me to Pastor Francisco. Pastor Francisco introduced me to Pastor Angel. It kept going. And Pastor Angel, I remember going to his church, and he told me, you have to go back to the Dominican Republic because I have an invitation there. And he introduced me to Pastor Cesar Suero, which was a major connection, and it just kept growing. I mean, the process was just truly a God-ordained move that could have never, it could never been done by a man. And I remember, when I got to Pastor Cesar Suero, I went back home. I knew that I was onto something special, and I needed to go to college, go to Bible college to study. I was studying, preaching, growing the ministry, always alone. No one was with me. Didn't have a car, didn't have a cell phone. But by the grace of God, somehow, every place that I went to, I always had enough to go to the next place. I remember that sophomore year in Bible college while I was preaching, and I got on a 14-day fast. I got the name. The Lord just spoke to me, said, you have to officially launch your ministry, and I want you to call it More International Ministries. And I remember being so excited because the Lord told me that the reason why he was giving me that name, More International Ministries, was because it was about making our race everything. And so we started the ministry with Pastor Israel Lugo as the vice president, and we launched it, we registered it, and we started doing those first crusades that were just 300 people, 400 people, and it just kept growing. And now, looking back, we've done at least 40 crusades, 50 crusades the last 10 years. And at least 175,000 people, 200,000 people have heard the gospel minister personally. Over 80, 90,000 salvations. And who would have thought that we will be here now, 10 years later, from 2014 to 2024, closing out in one of the biggest crusades, starting from doing a crusade in Puerto Rico with 12 people to finishing a crusade today with 12,000 people. Only God could have done that. The first crusade only had 3 salvations, and the last crusade has 6,000. Be encouraged, and remember the words of Job 8:7, though your beginnings be small, your latter end shall greatly increase. That's my story, God's story, and to him alone be all the glory. Amen and amen.